So what actually makes a good trade? Like, is there any particular trait, characteristic, method, anything? Well, let's analyze 3 trades in particular. The first one is a trade based on an FOMC meeting. Then we analyze a trade based on an economic indicator, such as the CPI. And then something a bit different. A trade based mostly on price action, but with an important detail. Now, I know that's not going to sound a lot interesting, but bear with me for a second because it gets really useful. So let's start with the first one. As you can see, the trade ideas are from one core element. In this case, it's the FOMC rate decision. In particular, in this example, there was a meeting where Powell went in a bit more hawkish than expected, and that hawkish tone triggered a fresh wave of dollar buying. So that event shaped also some bearish price action across most currencies against the dollar, and that included AUD/USD. So in simple, the fundamental sentiment suggested dollar strength. The price action across the board pointed to dollar strength. And as an extra, also, seasonals pointed in the same direction. And that made a trade. So here's how it unfolded. And let's go straight into the next example. Now, this trade idea started instead from a soft CPI print in the US. Now, if you know how to look at fundamentals, you know that the data that prints sets up the expectation for what the central bank will do next. That's what actually moved the market. So this CPI set the context for the dovish FOMC rate decisions ahead. And you know, dovish, hawkish, if you don't know what that means, we have a video for that. But to make it simple, it set the context for dollar weakness. And that made the first element. Now, we've seen in the previous example 3 elements. So fundamentals, technicals, and seasonals. So in this trade too, the technical side suggested the same thing with the price action. And again, also on top of that, seasonals were also on the same page. So again, fundamental sentiment suggested dollar weakness, technical aspect suggested dollar weakness, and seasonals also pointed in the same direction too. Now, see the recurring theme here? The same 3 elements from the first example. Fundamentals, technicals, seasonals. And here's how the trade unfolded. Now that's a solid trade. So that's the point. When you have multiple confluences aligned for your trade, that's what makes a solid trade. That's what makes a good trade. But now let's look at something different. In the previous 2 examples we mentioned, first the macro sentiment and then the technical aspect as confluence. So let's look at the opposite. Big bullish engulfing candle on Euro GBP right after it took an important low. Now, in the way we look at technical analysis, that for us suggested a bullish upside expansion. Now, technicals alone are great, but price action backed by fundamental context is even better. So we went on and analyzed what actually formed that bullish engulfing, and it was some weak data from the UK that set the expectation, again, you know, expectations move the market. It set the expectation for the dovish Bank of England rate decision ahead. That context made sense of the price action, and it gave us the context again, you know, to go ahead with the trade. But the point that I'm trying to come across is that it's a combination of mainly fundamentals and technicals. That's what makes a solid trade. It's not just about one or the other, but instead, when you want to generate a solid trade idea, you use both. And you already know how to do some technical analysis. So what about fundamentals? How can you generate some proper fundamental context? How can you understand the fundamental context? Well, first of all, let me tell you something. The best fundamentals insights are the ones that help you understand the big picture, the market context, and the trading opportunities that arise from the economic data and events. Perfect. We agree on that. But more than that, the best sources of fundamentals are the ones that help you filter out the noise, because there is a lot of noise and a lot of irrelevant information. So there's a couple of ways to get the proper macro insights for your trading. First of all, of course, you can follow us on our public Telegram channel. That's where you will find trade ideas like the ones shown earlier. But other than that, there's another place I want to mention. Bloomberg Market Surveillance. Now, you probably haven't heard of that, even though it's pretty popular, but it's not really popular between retail traders. But I can tell you that they're quite useful. They're really useful to stay well updated on the markets. Now, you can find them on YouTube, but there's a caveat to that, because it's worth keeping in mind that Bloomberg market surveillance is great, but it's not really the most effective and practical method to stay updated. But nonetheless, they're great. You can watch their show and you can really know everything going on in the markets fundamentally. Now, they talk about a lot of stuff, which also means a lot of useless stuff that's not really relevant to trading purposes. So the next step that you have to make is to learn to filter through the noise of what you're watching, what you're reading, what you're analyzing, because you have to take away the information that it's really important for your trading, to extract the information that matters for the context, for the sentiment, for your trading. Now, you've seen 3 examples of a solid trade ideas based on fundamental informations, one around the FOMC rate decision, then a trade around a CPI print, and another one based on price action backed by fundamentals. Now, 3 trades with 3 core elements in common: fundamentals, technicals, seasonals. And so you have seen how useful it is to combine all of them together, to have the confluence to create a powerful trade idea that is backed both by macro context, price action, and seasonal. Now, the also next step is that you make sure you follow the best traders that give you the best sources for your fundamentals, for your technicals, and whatever, because that matters a lot.